Good morning, Bernie. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Bernie Brew. My name is Jeff Flinn. I'm the managing editor at the Bernie Star newspaper. We combine with Bernie Radio 103.9 FM to bring you a message every Saturday morning here bright and early. Get your coffee, get your pad and pencil out. You won't need to do much writing this time, but we're going to stir your memories. I've got three people here from the Boerne Performing Arts. We've got a show coming up. I guess they need the pad and pencil to write down what we're going to talk about for December 12th. But also we're going to reminisce about that last decade and a half. I've got Paula White here. She's pretty much a marketing director for the Boerne Performing Arts. If you haven't been to any of their shows, there's one left, okay? And we're going to talk about that. Carol Schultz, past president and one of the original organizers. She's been involved in the administrative angle since day one. And I've got Jeff Thompson here as well, treasurer, secretary for Boerne Performing Arts. Been to almost all but a random show here or there. You got a wedding to go to in Maine, or you got COVID, or something that keeps everybody away from one show that they always wish it would have attended. And we're going to talk about some of those shows. Paula, thanks for coming in today. Tell us a little bit about Boerne Performing Arts, your involvement, and what we're looking at in December.
Boerne Performing Arts, we've been in business 12 years, or been offering wonderful shows for 12 years. And we do have another one coming up, our final performance ever, on December 12th, 7 o'clock p.m. at Boerne Champion Auditorium. We're very excited to present the Four Phantoms.
Oh, yeah.
And they've been here before, but this is going to be a holiday show, and they're going to be singing some of their wonderful numbers from the Broadway play Phantom of the Opera, and we're very excited to have them coming.
And how can they get tickets for that, Paula?
It's easy to get tickets. Most tickets, you can go online, BoernePerformingArts.com, and get your tickets. Or if you needed to, you could drop by the Boerne Chamber of Commerce. They're our box office. You can pick up tickets there, or call our phone number at 830-331-9079. Leave a message, and somebody will get back with you to get your tickets to you.
Right. Now, Carol Schultz, it's been a long ride. It's been 12 wonderful years. Tell us about what it was like in year one. Tell us a little bit about what's happened since then.
How it all started was that Greg and Sue Talford, who were very involved for 15 plus years in Kerrville Performing Arts, came to the city of Boerne, came to John Kelly, who was our superintendent of schools at the time, and Dan Heckler, our mayor, and said, "We're in trouble. We have 3 shows lined up and we don't have a venue." They had some problems with contract issues with where they had their venue in Kerrville, and came and said, "Boerne, can we use your school auditorium and have these 3 shows?" And of course, everyone said, "Yes, that's fabulous." And so that year there were actually 2 performances of each show, and Doc Severinsen was one. There was a mariachi band, and then Neil Berg's Broadway, and they were a big hit. So we said, "Well, we want you to come back, but we don't want you to be Kerrville Performing Arts. We want you to be Boerne Performing Arts." And that's how it all started. And the Talford said, "Yes, we're in." The schools were very excited, because the main thing that we did was not only did we have those evening shows, but we had student concerts during the day where we would target either 3rd, 4th, or 5th graders, those kids that would normally be going into band or orchestra, and have a show for them during the day, no cost. All students of that particular grade, plus the life skills students, were coming. So that's how it all started. And actually, it really has been 14 or 13 years, because we had to shut down during COVID. But we've had 12 years of performances.
I think everybody's taken a mulligan. When you have the 32nd annual, you took that year off, but nobody counts that anymore. Everybody understands.
Everybody understands.
Heck, the NCAA gave every college football player next year, said, just take it, just do what you want. We're not going to count it. So if NCAA can give up a year, everybody else can give up the year. So I've got Jeff Thompson here. Jeff, on the board for Boerne Performing Arts. Tell us a little bit about your involvement as treasurer and secretary. I'm going to start with Jeff and say, tell me about some of your favorite shows.
Sure. Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for having us this morning.
Jeff and Jeff.
Much appreciated. That's right, Jeff and Jeff. As you mentioned, I've been on the board for the last 5 years, I think. About the time I started to think about retiring from the city of Boerne, where I had also been involved with BPA on the other side, as Carol mentioned, through Mayor Heckler and through my work on the Economic Development Board and things like that. we saw the Boerne Performing Arts as not just fun, but as something important to the community in terms of quality of life, which is one of the biggest drivers of economic development. People come to a town or to a place, not just because you got good employee pool, but because those people have something good to do. And for Boerne to have something of this nature, this stature, was a big hit. It was a big win for the economic development group that I was working on with at the time, and continues to be, till today. And unfortunately, this will be our last show. But some of my favorites, well, probably my all-time favorite was a group called Bowfire. And it was a group of violin players from Canada. And at first I thought, well, how good can that really be? But it was fantastic. All the artists we've had over the years have been stellar. But these folks really, I could not make a note that sounds like music on a violin. So I'm always impressed by people who can play that, whether you call it violin or fiddle here in Texas, whatever. But the Canadians knocked it out of the park. And I think my favorite moment even in the 12, 13 years worth of shows that my wife and I have been attending, you always have the obligatory, they just left the stage, but if you stand up and clap, they'll come back out, for the encore. And we were doing that for the Bowfire, and they came out. And to my surprise, they started playing a Led Zeppelin song, which,
Really?
That's in my wheelhouse. Growing up in the 60s and 70s. So they played that song Kashmir by Led Zeppelin
Kashmir.
with all violins, electric violins, not just
I can
acoustic.
see that. I can hear that arrangement. I can hear that.
Dun-dun-dun,
Yeah.
dun-dun-dun. It was awesome, and we had really good seats and enjoyed the heck out of that, as I have really almost all the shows. I would say there's never been anything I'd call a dud in all that time, but that one really, really was impressive for me. And my wife and I always liked Tao, too, the Tao drummers. They're a group of drummers from Japan, and just super athletic. The things they can do as athletes is amazing. And then to do those things while they're playing drums and bent over backwards doing sit-ups for 5 minutes and still hammering away on their drums. I was just impressed from both angles.
Our equivalent of that was Stomp. Stomp was kind of the U.S. American version
of
Tao.
that.
Yeah.
Yes. And so very impressed by them. Of course, they've been with us a few times and have enjoyed each of those shows.
Well, musicians love musicians. And, you could have invited Doc Severinsen back to the mariachis, and he would have showed up. He would have loved that. We're talking about the Boerne Performing Arts, folks. We've got 3 people here from the Boerne Performing Arts Management. We just talked to Jeff Thompson. He gave us his favorite. I'm going to go to Paula White, who's kind of the marketing director for BPA all these years. Paula, what has been one of your favorite shows and why?
That's really hard to narrow down because it's been so amazing. It's truly like you're on Broadway. I loved the 10 Tenors. They were awesome. They were a huge hit. They came several times. But, thinking about what Carol was talking about back to that first season, the Vienna Boys Choir came. That blew me away. And especially the little boy who hiccuped in the middle of it. It stopped everything for a moment, and then they proceeded. But, you heard about them all your life, the Vienna Boys Choir, and then to have them in Boerne, Texas. All of these internationally acclaimed artists, having them in our community was such a gift that we were so glad to give and so proud of bringing to Boerne. Momex was another thing that I really enjoyed, somebody that had never been before. They put on a wonderful performance. It was like you were at Vegas at a show. It was wonderful as well.
I kind of share Jeff's musical background. I got here late to the show. I didn't arrive till June/July of 2023. A couple months late for the British invasion. That would have been up. That was my wheelhouse right there. I saw that house. But the one show I was able to catch, it wasn't on one of my deadlines, was Time for 3. And that was, I didn't expect. When you walk in without any expectations, that's fantastic because they just overwhelmed us. They were fantastic. They were great musicians. They were enjoyable. They were humorous. They were relatable. The music was a broad spectrum. I was telling you, from Imagine by John Lennon to Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses, Beethoven. They played Orange Blossom Special. And then all the holiday songs they had. It was just a huge representation, a great repertoire, and they were so manageable. And they talked to the audience. They were talking to people you just don't get that. And I looked online on their website, And right now they're going to Denver, College Park, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and you had them in Boerne.
They just come off of winning a Grammy award.
Right.
They were amazing young
Well,
men.
and I will say that we have the Talfords, Greg and Sue Talford, to thank for that, because they had years of experience and relationships with agents and artists. I mean, some of those artists that they've had out at their home, and they've had long-term relationships, and so we were able to find those people. And I think originally some people, just like you, thinking, oh, Bullfire, do I want to listen to strings for 2 hours, or do I want to listen to drums for 2 hours? But it only took maybe 2 or 3 seasons, and people started to trust us and said, oh, I don't know who those people are, but if Boerne Performing Arts is bringing them, I bet they're good. I bet they're good. So,
well, that helps too, because your first season, you don't want to pull together and say, okay, we've got our new organization, Boerne Performing Arts. Hey, Jeff, your brother's in a band, right?
Yes, he is. A very good band for a lot of years.
Let's bring them. But you know, when you get Kerrville, and I'm sure they lent you some expertise on how to get Doc Severinsen and how to get the Vienna Boys Choir, which is something you three and your group probably couldn't have reached if you had struck out on your own in 2012.
That's exactly right. We've had their guidance for many, many years, and like I said, their relationships and how they've been able to book people. But it has been a unique coordination, because we had our season is usually January through maybe April at the latest, and coordinating through the school. We didn't have our own venue, and working through the school, we certainly couldn't do it during the fall and football season. We were able to squeeze in a holiday show and do a special event like that. But it took a great amount of coordination to coordinate with those people on their tours to stop in Boerne along the way and figure out all of the coordination that took place was really difficult.
And kudos to the school district champion.
Exactly.
Same thing. The school district's been huge the whole time, and I'm on the poster brigade too that goes out and delivers posters, as you guys probably are too. And some of the things we had to talk about when folks would say, "Well, really, it's at the high school," and they're imagining some aluminum, bleachers in there. Like, no, this is a 1,000-seat, state-of-the-art, acoustically fantastic venue. And so we were very blessed to have the school district's cooperation all through the years.
The Time for Three guys, they thanked you for inviting them and said, thank you for giving us this wonderful, acoustically sound auditorium. They laughed like maybe they had been at places that weren't.
That's exactly right.
Where your notes are echoing back to you 4 or 5 seconds later.
Right.
Most of the artists that we've had 44 performances over these years from 14 different countries.
Wow.
But most of them asked us if they could come back. They loved it. They loved the hospitality, and they loved Boerne and the reception that they had from the audiences and the great venue.
The Four Phantoms did that.
Yes.
I was their driver a couple of years ago, and they said, you got to have us back for a Christmas show.
And so they're
coming.
Coming back. Great. We're talking to some members of the Boerne Performing Arts Board. Boerne Performing Arts, unfortunately, is wrapping up after 12, 13 years of a run. We have a holiday show come up December 12th. Carol, we're talking to Carol Schultz. She's been a board member all along. Carol, when you stop and think of all the groups, the 44 groups we've had, which one caught you most by surprise? Which is one like you heard about them? We know the Vienna Boys Choir.
Right.
You guys knew who Doc Severinsen was. You probably didn't know who Time for Three. You probably didn't know who
Bowfire.
I mean, which one really set you back? I mean, in a good sense.
Well, I'm a music educator in my former life, and so there were lots of groups that I knew, and as far as genres that I knew, the brass and the vocals and things like that. But I will think Tao was the one that really surprised me, because I just had skepticism, like, can I sit through 2 hours of drumming? But but it was not just drumming. They're the ones that really surprised me the most. And I will say that we as a board have been very lucky to get these artists behind the scenes. We're an all volunteer driven organization, and so we provide the hospitality. We do, we help with setup and all the things like that, and we see them behind the scenes. And I cannot think of one group that was not so grateful for everything that we did for them. And it was just a pleasure to be able to And they're just normal people.
No
like
matter
you and
where
me.
they were from, they loved our tacos and barbecue.
Yes, right. And they're,
They got a lot of that.
They're very talented, but they're very down to earth. And so
True.
it's just been a pleasure. I think my favorite one was Voctive. And it was hard to select, but just their voices were just incredible. But the other part of that is one of their singers was their arranger. And how he arranged their music, he knew every one of their voices just so perfectly and knew what they could do. And those arrangements, I mean, those people were Disney group people. They all performed in Disney for years before they formed their own little group. And so that was just a real treat.
I have a musician, I like a guy named Todd Rundgren. A lot of people don't know who he is. He put out an album that was all voices, all vocals. You hear it, you hear organ, you hear guitar, you hear drums, but it's all vocal fed through some emulator or mixer. He took it on the road, on tour. He had 13 people behind. I thought he was just going to play. He had 13 people behind him who were singing the parts he sang, because, of course, he can't do all of them on the. I thought, how is he going to do this? And he walked out. And he said, "Welcome to it's called Acapella is the album." Mm-hmm. And the curtain opened. There was all these people standing there. I thought, oh, he's going to do this. I was, again, you're just shocked and amazed by the sound that comes out of 13 people. Vienna Boys Choir has to be evocative, has to be the same way, where you're just astounded. I like to just close my eyes and listen sometimes. Music is not always visual, it's audible. Had a Dan Fogelberg concert, got tickets, it said, limited vision seating or something like that, and we got there and there's a big pillar in the way. My friend says, "Man, we can't see anything." I said, "It's Fogelberg, you don't have to see. Just sit and listen." Just Paula, I'm talking to Paula White here with the Boerne Performing Arts Board. Tell us, the four Phantoms have been here before. Tell us about, was that a holiday show or was that a regular April, May?
It was a regular show in January when they came, and they did a lot of their wonderful numbers from Broadway, from Phantom of the Opera, and the four men that come have played the head role of Phantom of the Opera collectively over 6,000 times.
Wow.
But blending their voices together was absolutely wonderful. There's a young lady that came with them also, who is the youngest lady for the role in Phantom.
The lead female role. I
Yes.
can never remember the name either.
Kaylee Ann Voorhees.
There you go.
Okay. And she is coming again.
Really?
She's going to make an appearance with them this time, which, boy, my husband is musical and has that background, and he said, "Get rid of the four Phantoms, just give me her." Her voice was perfect.
I saw Phantom at about 88, 89, 90, something like that. You stop and think, I wonder if one of these guys was the Phantom.
Yes.
Very likely so, right?
Very likely so.
That was my
I
Phantom.
save all my programs, and I want to go back and look at the one on Broadway that I saw and see which one played that role.
Yeah, folks, if you've been to the Phantom in the past 40 years, one of these guys was probably your Phantom. You need to come out December 12th. And
Odds are.
One thing about, I was going to mention, Time for Three, and the people I sat by said, "Hey, after the show, come over and talk to them." They stay. They have a preamble with the students, and they use instruments, and they show these kids. And tell us about the pre and the post for the shows. Tell us about involvement that way.
Well, we have preludes, interludes, and those are usually Champion or Boerne High School students, either a jazz band or the orchestra or vocal groups. And so they perform before the show begins. You get to see where your tax dollars are going and the wonderful music programs that we have here. And then they play during intermission. And also we have an art exhibit of art throughout. It's usually different grade levels. And that's going on, so you get to see that. And then after the show, they will come out and sign autographs, and you get to talk to them. And a lot of them will let you take their picture with them. It's just, like I said, they're just very down to earth and so grateful.
That's what I'll do. Were you in El Paso in '88? No, were you in El Paso in '88?
Yeah, ask them where. Yeah, chances they probably do remember which one they did.
It's not a prelude, but the show's for the kids also.
Yeah.
During the day before. They either do a show for the kids, or some of them did a master's class where it was just a select group of musically inclined students with them. But Paula, did you say 40,000 children?
We had over 40,000 children that came to an available free performance, thankful to our sponsors for providing that for these kids who probably never would see something like
Right.
this at this quality
Right.
ever again.
Like Carol said, she knows their music, and there's shows that she didn't know going in. Think of 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders like, Doc, is he going to operate?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know,
Who is Doc Severson?
they probably
Yes,
know
yeah.
what mariachis were. But I bet a Vienna boys choir would have knocked their socks off.
Right.
They're like, they're the same age as us.
Grandson got to see 2 shows, one in the 3rd grade, one in the 4th, and not a big musical guy, but he loved it, and so I was glad that he got that exposure. He likes to play sports, football, basketball, and the like, but this gave him a musical appreciation that he didn't have before.
One year I was covering Clemens High School football, and when the bands come out at halftime, there was a short or something in the sound system. So the visiting band came out first, and they had to stand there. There was no introduction or what, so it was like a 6 or 7 minute delay. And so when the teams came out, Clemens was still halfway through their program. It was like 7 or 8 minutes delay, and the teams were all standing down there watching. And I went down and talked to the athletic director. He said, "Well, this is neat." He says, "These guys never get to see a halftime show.
True.
They never get to see their marching bands during halftime or after game because they're either getting talked up to at halftime or they're taking showers because they were all sweaty." So that was interesting. That's another aspect where you never see performance. And when you get 44,000 kids, I went to the Time for 3 on the YouTube, and when you open it up, all the comments are just so, these guys were great. You know, one guy said it inspired me to take up the violin. I've been playing the piano since I was 20. I'm 41. He said, "I'm taking up the violin when I'm 41. He said, "I thought I would start getting my AARP soon." You know, so, you know, all those comments are like that. And you go to Voctiv and you go to Tao, they're all like the comments section when you log on. Everybody's so welcoming and positive about these acts.
We had one of the teachers put together a lesson plan that all the teachers would do before those children would come to the performance to try to prep them to understand what they were going to see. And then afterwards, we asked them to write letters talking about what the favorite part of the show that they saw was. And we have some fabulous letters that all those kids have written over the years.
Did you get any after Tao saying, "Thanks a lot, now my son is drumming on everything around the house"? I'm Jeff Flinn, managing editor at the Boerne Star. We're here on Boerne Brew talking to members of the Boerne Performing Arts group. Unfortunately, the last act, the last curtain rise is going to be December 12th. 12 productive, 44 shows over 12 years. And hopefully you've been able to catch one. If you haven't, you need to get out to see the 4 Phantoms. These are 4 guys who've been on Broadway or wherever they are. I saw them in El Paso. I'm sure it's a Broadway show. Broadway to Boerne. Okay, understand that, folks. These acts that have come around for 12 years, first year was Doc Severinsen, and then we had Vienna Boys Choir. Then you have Tao from Japan. You had the Canadian brass. You know, acts from all over the world were coming here to Boerne. And if you don't, you've got to make time to come out for a holiday. Somebody looking for a Christmas gift for somebody, take them to 4 Phantoms. If you haven't been to a Broadway show, this is as close as you're going to get for a while. Bring them. Go out and buy tickets. It's a Thursday night, right?
It is a Thursday night. It's a great way to kick off the holiday season.
Right.
Get your tickets at BoernePerformingArts.com or stop by the chamber. They're our box office.
We've got about 200 tickets left out of 1,000, so
that's
time to go get them.
It will be a sold-out show, so don't
wait
wait too late.
Don't wait,
Get your
folks.
tickets.
This is the last day of November. You've got to go out and get your tickets now, folks, before they disappear. And the 12 days of Christmas would back up right almost to the first day of Christmas will almost be December 12th.
That's right, yeah.
So we got to work things in, folks. Hey, guys, thanks for coming out. One more time, tell me an act, if you didn't have the 4 Phantoms, you'd like to have seen a holiday show from. Tao, Voctiv, the Vienna Boys Choir, Doc Severinsen. What is a show you would have loved to have seen, or you could have imagined them doing a holiday show?
I think another one, there's so many, the 5 Browns, those siblings coming together and all playing pianos, that they were amazing. Not only singing, but the piano, they just blew me away. To have that much talent in one family.
And that could be a great holiday show right there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think we did actually have them for a holiday show.
Yes.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yes, because that's what I was thinking too. 5 rounds would be good. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
did do that. So
Well, maybe the ukuleles. They were another one that blew me away. I thought, oh, I like ukuleles, but can I listen to them for 2 hours? They
Yes.
were incredible. And when they played the soundtrack from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
I know,
And
right?
it sounded
Yeah.
just
like it.
like
Yes.
that soundtrack. And I thought, oh my gosh.
And their sense of humor. Oh
I
my
was going to say that's the
Yes.
same one I would have
Yeah.
chosen just because I love their humor too. They're like Monty Python plays a ukulele, and so
Well, they
come
they
listen
know
for a
everybody
couple hours.
kind of ukulele. Well, listen, folks, thank you for tuning in this morning. It's the second day of Dickens on Main. Dickens on Main Day. Fall has finally arrived just in time for winter. It's going to be a little chilly. It's going to be, I think, a high of 55 today. So bundle up. Make sure the kids have their little jackets. Folks, bring folks out. Enjoy the holidays. Next weekend is Why Not Parade, December 12th. Write it down. You've got to get your tickets now. Jeff said there's about 200 left. Go get your tickets for the 4 Phantoms and give Boerne Performing Arts the send out it deserves. Paula, thank you much for being here. Carol, thanks for coming. Jeff, thanks for adding your wisdom and your sense of humor and let me know I missed a Led Zeppelin, the best Led
Tribute
Zeppelin song
concert.
ever. Yeah. Thank you, folks. Hey, thanks for tuning in as you always do. We'll see you next week. God bless and have a great holiday. Bye-bye.